This is the Marvel Comics character, Dormammu, but you might recognize him from his appearance in the MCU. But in Ultimatum issue number 4, he takes being a bad guy to a whole new level. While in a rampage, Hulk creates a magical explosion, which seemingly kills Spider-Man. I know, big surprise. Moving on. In doing so, he releases one of Doctor Strange's biggest foes, Dormammu. You can even see the Human Torch trapped in his necklace. Doctor Strange tries to step in to help, and the two begin fighting, until Dormammu seems to have the upper hand. Control of Doctor Strange's clothing and begins constricting him, until, brace yourselves, we get this horrific imagery. Yeah, that is Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme, being crushed like a grape. Then Dormammu pulls an Andy from Toy Story and says, "I don't want to play with you anymore." The worst part is, the other heroes don't even acknowledge it. You just saw one of your friends get crushed in front of you. Say something. This is Victor Von Doom, and in the comic series Ultimatum, he gets taken out. But how exactly did it happen? Let's talk about it. You see, this all revolves around Ben Grimm, the Thing. You see, Johnny Storm was MIA, Sue Storm was in a coma, Reed Richards was doing Reed Richards things, and Ben Grimm was just done with Doom and all of his antics. So he went to Latveria to track him down. So he finds Victor Von Doom and says he wants to talk. Dr. Doom hits him with a vague threat, but realistically, he's talking to a giant rock monster. He has nothing to fear. And while Namor is just chilling in basically a Bacta tank, the Thing finally snaps and basically crushes Doom's skull. Namor is justifiably freaking out, and the Thing kinda just no-souls the situation. But was it really Doom? Because you see, friends, it's actually alleged that it wasn't Victor Von Doom, and it was actually Johnny and Sue Storm's mom. This is Hitman issue 22 from DC Comics. And this story is called The Santa Contract. This story focuses on this man here named Bob. He was working as a janitor at a nuclear plant in Gotham, when unfortunately, a drunken man dressed up as Santa pushes him into nuclear waste. But he actually lives. Needless to say though, he looks a little different. He actually says, "I can do stuff now, I can be popular." But he quickly realizes his power set might not really be suited for superheroics. So he turns on a freaking dime and decides to accept being a supervillain. His coworkers are terrified and they realize they have to call in a professional. But it couldn't be Batman because he's a little preoccupied. So as the comic suggests, they hire a hitman, that being the titular character, Tommy Monahan. So as Bob is just walking around melting people, Tommy and his friend Nat track down every Santa they can find, and scare the daylights out of a couple Santas, before finally finding Bob, and just wreck him. All from the author of The Boys. This is The Immortal Hulk, issue 33, and in this book, we see one of the most grotesque transformations the Hulk has ever had. Here you can see Dr. Robert, Bruce, Banner, writhing in pain. They refer to him as Bob and ask him if he's okay, and he replies, "That's not my name," and begins screaming. Doc Samson tries to hold him down, but says, "God, he's strong." And that's when we see fingers start ripping through Bruce's mouth. And as you can see here, they eventually start ripping him completely in half, with an entire arm busting through Dr. Banner, with the Hulk eventually busting free, and you can even see bits of Dr. Banner left behind. Hulk's back, and he means business. You can even see Doc Samson holding what's left of Dr. Banner's head. And yes, while images like this are really disturbing, it's not actually the first time the Hulk has done something like this. Because as you can see here, the Hulk has been known to rip through Banner's skin before. This is the Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner, and honestly, the writers hate him. But let me explain why. We've already gone over the fact that his girlfriend got unalived off screen and stuffed into a fridge. But what about the time that he was assaulted by another man? Let's talk about it. It all revolves around this guy right here, known as Bueno Excelente. Kyle begins to tell Batman about how he had an encounter with this man at a Gotham City bar, saying that all he could remember is somebody must have spiked his drink, and all he could remember hearing was, "Bueno, bueno, bueno." And that would be this man right here, Bueno Excelente, who is a known predator, if you know what I mean. And all he says is bueno and excelente. So Kyle was just minding his own business, and this happens to him. And how does Batman react to finding out a friend of his was assaulted? He says, "Are you finished?" Recently, I've been covering the Ultimate Universe's Ultimatum, and today we're going over everything with Magneto. In this comic, Magneto shifts the magnetic poles of Earth, throwing the Earth off its axis and effectively taking out millions of people, including flooding Manhattan. But boy oh boy, he doesn't stop there. He meets up with his old friend Charles Xavier and tries to explain himself, where, rightfully, Charles compares him to some pretty evil historical figures. So Magneto snaps his neck and removes Professor X from existence. Oh, by the way, he also disintegrates Wolverine. You can see his claws still stabbed into Magneto's chest. Yeah, that smoking pile that looks like Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru is what's left of Wolverine. But don't worry, friends, Magneto has a change of heart and meets up with Cyclops, who proceeds to obliterate his face. After all is said and done, Cyclops gives a press conference, where he is subsequently removed from this Earth. But by who, you ask? Magneto's son Quicksilver. This is She-Hulk, otherwise known as Jennifer Walters. And today we're going over the time she defended her former lover, Star Fox. Star Fox, otherwise known as Eros, has the ability to physically control people's emotions. And in this comic, he's being accused of using his powers to, let's just say, force some grapes on people, if you know what I mean. While defending him in court, Jennifer asks Star Fox if he ever used his powers on her, and he refuses to answer. And it's established in the Avengers comics that they at least shared a night together. This causes her to snap and beat the brakes off of him. He keeps trying to explain himself, and she, rightfully, is just beating the crap out of him. But was it really justified? Because you see, it turns out he really didn't have control of his powers. In fact, thanks to Star Fox's brother, his powers are made uncontrollable. And his brother is Thanos. Looks like the Mad Titan strikes again. This is Injustice issue number 1. And we start off with Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen meeting up with who they believe is a councilman. However, after he shoots and takes out Jimmy Olsen, it's revealed to be the Joker. Superman goes to the crime scene, and he sees his friend no longer living. But all he can think now is, where is Lois? Superman meets up with Batman to help find Lois, who enlists the help of the Justice League. Superman ends up finding them in a nuclear submarine, which he easily lifts out and shreds. But on board he finds Doomsday, one of his most powerful villains. And the two begin to brawl. At which point Batman and the Justice League apprehend the Joker and Harley. And that's when the truth is revealed. That wasn't Doomsday he was fighting. It was his pregnant wife, Lois Lane. To add insult to injury, Joker rigs a bomb in Metropolis to detonate when Lois's heart stops. Superman lost his city, his wife, and his unborn child. But don't worry, friends, Superman gets his revenge. This is Janet Van Dyne, otherwise known as the Wasp, one of the founding members of the Avengers, and a victim of spousal abuse? But was that the original intention? Let's talk about it. In the comics, just like in the movies, Janet is married to none other than Ant-Man himself, Hank Pym, or, as he may be known in the comics, Yellow Jacket. Yeah, it's a bit of a difference between that and the MCU, but let's roll with it. And in the most famous panel that this couple shares, you see Hank Pym slap the crap out of her, let's be honest here. Janet even meets up with the rest of the Avengers afterwards and reveals her black eye, and subsequently, Hank is removed from the team. But here's the thing. That wasn't what the writer originally wanted to happen. Yes, you heard me right. Originally, this was supposed to be an accident, and the artist took it and ran with it. So Hank Pym became known as a wife beater because of a misconception.